Hey there, business owners, directors, and marketeers. In today's show, I'm meeting Olof Mathe from Mixmax. I'm sure a lot of you guys have been hearing about the tool already, even myself, actually been trying it out for quite some time. Olaf is the CEO and co-founder of Mixmax. It's basically the all-in-one platform for revenue teams. Prior to working on Mixmax, Olaf was an entrepreneur and also worked for Skype and McKinsey. And he also organizes Art Hack Day, which sounds very interesting. So Olaf, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to meet y'all.
Very good. So for the ones who haven't heard about Mixmax, tell us about the product and the company. What is it all about?
Yeah. So Mixmax, we're a product for revenue teams. We see the world of business really simple. There are kind of builders at companies, and then there are closers at companies. And so we're specifically a product for closers and revenue teams. And if you think about revenue teams and people who bring in the money, there are a bunch of sub-teams. It's SDRs, sales, success, account management, implementation. There's so many point solutions for these various functions, and nothing that ties these functions together and makes these functions collaborate better. And so we're a sales engagement platform for all of these revenue teams.
Got you. Makes complete sense. What types of companies are the ones that would be usually sort of, looking into using Mixmax? Are we talking like startups? Are we talking enterprise? Is it all across the spectrum?
Yeah, so we're primarily for SMBs with a smattering of mid-market companies and a lot of startups as well. The beauty of Mixmax is that it's really easy to get started with. And even if you have more kind of complex workflows or playbooks you want to set up in Mixmax, you're up and running within a day.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Okay, so those types of guys, who would be the champions usually within a company, to bring Mixmax into the company and champion it? How does that usually work? Is there certain sort of personas that you usually speak to?
Yes. So key persona for us are AEs or CSMs. And typically, these are IC AEs and CSMs who discover the product on their own and get a lot of value in their daily work from using it. It can be for doing instant calendaring. It can be for automatic Salesforce updates. It can be for something as trivial as making sure I follow up on all my open opportunities. And so they start to get value. It tends to spread in the team. And then from there, typically we talk to a decision maker or a sales manager, director, VP sales ops.
You mentioned that those guys find Mixmax by themselves. Like, what would be a typical user journey that somebody goes through in order to sort of discover, identify, and finally end up using Mixmax? What are the sort of the key channels somebody would be going through?
Yeah, key channels for us are actually word of mouth or some of the viral mechanics we have in the product. And so a big channel for us is actually referrals. So people who use the product and then recommend it to, their podmates or their teammates. So it tends to spread pretty organically that way. And then we also see a lot of growth from people who use Mixmax at one company, and then when they leave to another company, they bring Mixmax with them because they found it really effective for their daily work there. And then we also have some experiences that are built into the product. For example, one thing that's really nice in Mixmax is you can embed pretty simple polls directly in an email. And so some people experience that, think it's really cool, and then try out Mixmax from there.
Okay, so it's kind of traveling with them in their career nearly.
Yes. Well, that's one of our missions as a company is to turn customers into heroes at work. And so for us, we feel we're successful when literally Mixmax is something that's like an Android jetpack that you kind of put on at work and that keeps track of all the tedium and everything you need to do on a daily basis. You can have more freedom at work and do what you love doing in a customer-facing role, which is typically talking to your customers, prospects, new accounts. And that's something that computers can't do.
Awesome. I actually checked out the website before we jump into the interview because we had in the recent interview specifically, we had interesting conversations about the different call to actions on the page. And I've been seeing that you guys have very prominently, sign up for free and requesting a demo. How do you think about that balance between those two call to actions? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I love this question because it's a matter of contention internally. And of course, what I should say, I think this is really interesting for fellow SaaS founders out there. They're kind of almost, you can think about it almost as kind of two competing priorities. On the one hand, we want a lot of signups. So we want the sign up for free button to be as prominent as possible. On the other hand, especially our sales team, they want the request a demo button to be as prominent as possible, because through a demo and through that form, we qualify people more precisely. And so this is actually something we're working on right now to try to figure out how we can amplify or kind of mitigate any, what should I call, for lack of a better word, tension between those two.
Yep.
Because ideally, we want a lot of signups that are really well qualified, where there's a really easy way for a signup to raise their hand and say, hey, I actually want a demo. Whereas right now, the experience is you kind of have to choose between the two, and they're seen as like binary disparate options. And so we're working towards something that feels a little bit more unified on those two.
Okay, very cool. That lends me to the next question, which is like how you're thinking about qualification. Maybe the ties already, in that sort of alley that you were describing before. Can you share a little bit more about how you're trying to, balance out those two actions and how to try to, qualify leads that are coming to the page?
Yeah, I can share what we do today, and then I can share a little bit like some of the things we're like discussing internally. So what we do today, if you sign up today, we have a scoring engine under the hood that will say, hey, this person who signed up based on their email address, they seem to be a great, target for the sales team. As in, this person could probably use more help and deserve some human attention because they seem to come from like a great account. So we have that scoring, and then if you fill out a demo request, of course, it goes to a rep, and based on the information they gave, it gets qualified a little bit richer there. So those are kind of those two separate motions. Now, I would love for us to get to something where these two start to blend together a little bit more. When you, as part of the sign-up process, perhaps you can indicate if you actually want a demo directly in the onboarding flow, or if you don't want perhaps a human-assisted demo, there are ways for you through like particular videos or other flows to get a richer experience. So I see that kind of as a continuum. And lastly, if we know, just perhaps you sign up from, hot and super exciting company.com, and we can actually pop a Mixmax calendar directly in the onboarding flow, so you can book time with an SDR right then and there. And that's something we don't do today, which we absolutely should.
Gotcha. So I understand you correctly that you're seeing those steps sort of merging into the onboarding flow based on different criteria and their conscious decision making.
Yes, that's kind of my vision for it, at least.
Gotcha.
I guess the way I think about it is, philosophically, as a customer, product shouldn't make you think. The reason you want a product is to help you do something, is for the product to do something so you don't have to do it. So I kind of myself just personally hate when products force me to think.
Yep, makes complete sense. What would be following up then, though, as a question from my side would be, how do you on the counter side think about conversions, right? Conversions on the website for either of the two goals. Like, is that something you have been with your team, actively improving upon? Is that something that you have been, historically been very happy with? What's your thinking? What's your taking about sort of the qualification versus the, conversion situation?
Yes, good question. Well, I'd say overall, we actually feel pretty happy with the conversion rate we have. One thing that's pretty unique about us as a business is we're a hybrid freemium direct sales business. And so let me clarify that a little bit. So typically a freemium business, we think about Slack as a freemium business. There's a free plan. You get a ton of value on the free plan. You can use it for as long as you want. You start using Slack on the free plan, and then you might upgrade to paid. A traditional direct sales business is like, you have to request a demo, you can't try it out on your own, etc. Right? It's super locked down. We're a little bit in the middle, in that when you start using Mixmax and you sign up for free, you're automatically put on a trial of one of our paid plans. And then as your trial starts to expire, we prompt you to upgrade. And then if you choose not to, you end up on the free plan. And so we found that model has actually been better for us for conversion than a pure kind of freemium play.
Gotcha. Makes complete sense. And just maybe one small sort of tangent in that topic. On the website in itself, in order to get the, more people actually starting the product, right? Because what we've been seeing, at least sort of in the industry when we were talking with companies, somewhere you're like 2% conversion. I mean, everybody's somewhere different, but around that, area, 2% conversion rate from the website to a free trial or a demo. What's your experience in order to improve this type of metric, and maybe you have a war story to share on being able to lift the visitor to lead conversion?
Yes, God, a war story is probably like our life right now. We actually haven't done a lot of work on conversion from the website itself, and part of it has been instrumentation issues with Google Analytics. So yeah, I wish I had more nuggets to share with the community on that.
Gotcha. So something you're more looking a little bit more down the road to improve.
Yes. I mean, we've done the very basic stuff of like continuously running A/B tests, which is a little bit different, I think, from a strict like funnel view where you have a very granular or like detailed view on how many uniques you're getting, what share of these uniques are actually users or perhaps returning users, segmenting those out, tracking differentiated conversion rates, ideally full funnel.
Gotcha.
So we're actually not super sophisticated on that today. And interestingly, we seem to see, I'd be curious what other folks in your community find, but depending on what we use, which product we use to measure uniques, we get actually pretty varying results.
Okay, so which is the one that you're trusting?
We're still talking about it.
Got you. Makes sense. Okay, interesting. Yeah, this was maybe the last question that I would want to have about the website, which would be sort of how you're analyzing all those steps, the measuring basically of the qualification steps, the A/B testing that you mentioned. Can you share a little bit about the stack that you're having set up in order to keep an overview of what's happening on the page?
Yes. Well, we use a variety of products throughout if you're talking the homepage specifically, so mixmax.com. For A/B tests, we use a product called Intellimise. For analytics, we mainly use Google Analytics and Amplitude. We have a chat bot where we're currently using Drift, although we've used all of them. That's, I think, the kind of rough outline of the current stack. And our homepage, by the way, is custom made. For kind of campaign landing pages, we use Unbounce.
Yep, makes sense. I would like to switch gears a little bit. I think we talked a little bit about your website a little bit and your analytics and ideas about conversions and qualification. I would love to learn about you as a person and a leader in the company a little bit more. How would you describe your goal? Maybe is there a certain KPI for the next couple of months? Is there a vision that you're following? What is sort of your top goal that you have in mind for your role?
Got it. Well, it's an interesting question because I find my role as CEO and co-founder is one in like constant evolution as the company grows. And I think one of the challenges for any co-founder CEO is to like successfully shed your skin as time goes by and the company grows and it reaches new levels of maturity. And so what you do changes a lot over time, and that can be very challenging and emotionally taxing too, right? Because you might find a lot of energy in a particular type of work, and then suddenly that type of work isn't no longer as important to the company. Perhaps someone else needs to do it, and you need to focus on something else. And so one of the things that I've actually enjoyed the most recently, and that has freed up a lot of my time, is hiring VPs to run particular functions. And so what's awesome for myself now in my role, I actually don't run any function anymore, but basically my job is managing a set of VPs who are functional owners. And it's such a blessing.
Okay, frees up yourself again for more thinking. Very good. I think founders in the community are always interested to learn about where you're educating yourself, right? People like yourself who've been building up such companies. We're always curious to learn, how do you educate yourself? Where do you go to learn? Is that, peers? Is that certain platforms, books, podcasts? What do you do in order to educate yourself?
Yeah. Well, I guess the way I think about this is like, how do you make sure as CEO that you're being really effective? And so I think about that as like two main avenues. One is an internal avenue and the other one is external. And so internal, the weird thing about being CEO is that like people might not always give you feedback or say what they think, and you do get treated a little bit differently than other people in the company. And so one thing I've been working a lot on is trying to create a culture of just ever-flowing feedback, not just between like others to myself to others, and in the company, to make sure I hear candidly about the impact I'm having on the team. And so I get a lot of feedback from the people who report to me, for which I'm super grateful, because that helps me better understand the impact I have. And it's interesting when, Mixmax was a 10-person company and now we're like 55 people. My words carry different weight at 10 people than what they do at 55. And so something that might just be, hey, I just thought this was a fun idea, someone might actually go and execute on, unless I'm like very careful about who I communicate this to, how I frame it, right? And so just to give you an example of how that journey stretches out. So that's internal. And then external, I think the thing that's been most helpful for me and that I'm still working on building is actually having a good set of sounding boards of people who are external to your company, who might be entrepreneurs who are one or two stages ahead of you, or even potentially at the same stage as you, who you can discuss challenges with. Okay. And I'm happy that overall in the community, that's like more and more discussed and encouraged, because I think it's like, at least for me, not quite where I would like it to be. So that's something else I'm working on.
Is there a topic that you could share that maybe you recently really tried to, deep dive into and maybe had conversations with, fellow founders or were reading about? Like one particular topic that was screeching an edge for yourself?
Well, yeah, I would say that the beauty of those conversations with other entrepreneurs is that they're always like completely off the record. And so like the founder CEO role obviously is like also a very lonely role, right? In a lot of ways with a lot of stressors. And so perhaps your VPs aren't the right people to talk to about, the emotional ups and downs or what you're facing in the moment. And it can be very therapeutic cross-founder to hear that other people go through the same types of emotional ups and downs or are tackling the similar type of issues as you are. So those can go from, HR questions through to performance questions, either for particular people on your team, through to how your company's performing, things you feel you yourself personally like weren't able to execute on. So yeah, I'd have to think a little bit deeper for like a specific thing that'd be good to share.
I think it gives a good flavor. I think it gives a good flavor of what you're thinking about. Okay, I would slowly like to come to an end of the interview. We've been talking a lot of different angles. We've been talking about the company, about you thinking about growth, and about you personally. The last couple of questions would be rapid fire questions. Maybe you have a word or a sentence that comes to mind when I'm asking the questions. Does it work for you? Cool. Great. So the first question would be, for your company, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the word marketing operations?
Busy work.
Mm-hmm. What is the first word that comes to your mind when I say the word sales operations?
Busy work.
Very good.
No, they're critical functions. I just feel that both marketing and sales ops don't have the tooling and the products that they need to like truly shine, because they are critical and strategic functions. And it's one of the reasons we created Mixmax, actually. So,
very good. What is one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Scaling the team.
Mm-hmm. If there would be no boundaries in technology, what would be one thing that you would wanted to have fixed for your company today?
Filling senior roles faster.
Mm-hmm. What is the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
God, that changes every night. Locking down a recent senior PM hire.
Mm-hmm. And just one more to go, the very last one. If you would, step outside your home today, it would be your first day working on Mixmax. What would be one advice that you would give yourself?
One piece of advice I would give myself: do less.
Would you mind to, oh no, it's rapid fire. Would you mind to qualify a little bit?
Yes, both do less personally and make sure other people on the team, you as CEO are actually not on the hook for particular initiatives, but that other people on the team own those. And also do less in the sense of, as the saying goes, a lot of startups die from indigestion. And so be very judicious about which initiatives you want to take on and have laser focus at all times on what the, one or two top priorities are for the company. And don't get distracted by anything else.
I think that's something very valuable, shared from somebody with a lot of experience in building up companies. So Olof, thanks a lot for taking the time today, for being part of Pathmonk Presents and being the guest of today's episode.
Sure thing. Well, great talking to you, Lucas.
Thank you.